Welcome to the Sheffield Sunday As Bill Sees It meeting. This is the main share meeting today, and it's with great pleasure and much gratitude that we want to welcome Sherri L., who's coming to share for about 40 minutes, after which we'll open for general sharing, or if you'd like to ask a question. Thank you, Sherri. It's wonderful to have you here. Over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Andy, so much. It's so good to see you, Young. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about God today. And I'm completely unapologetic about that. I'm Sherri. I'm an alcoholic. I don't do any of the I'm a grateful alcoholic, all those things, because I always feel like I have so many other things to say, but I'm going to tell you this. I had a sponsee ask me about 2 months ago. He said, don't you ever wake up and wish you weren't an alcoholic and had to do all this work? And I immediately answered with 1000% absolute certainty, no. Because today I have a life because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And today I have a God that I've never known before. I do get weepy. And there's definitely something about a Sunday. I'm going to tell you why I get weepy, because there's spiritual tears and there's not enough words in me to express my love of this program and this fellowship. And gosh, those steps, it's a true miracle, those steps. I liked this reading today, and I want to just say that, I had to look up groping, and groping means to blindly search. So the reading in As Bill Sees It today, number 323, was talking about blindly searching for God and the damage that my alcoholism caused. And let me finish the points, I guess, the bullet points. I've been sober since 2/2/02. That's not the last time I drank. The last time I drank was sometime in January, but because I black out, I don't remember exactly when that was. So I thought 2/2/02 was kind of fun. And it's something that I could remember in case I wanted to drink again. I'm not going to talk a lot about how I got here or what happened or all of that, because I think that we all have the same story with different details. I'm going to share just a few bullet points in case anyone here is new. I also want to say, if you're new, that there's only one step that talks about alcohol, and that's step 1. The rest of the steps talk about a spiritual experience. And when you get to step 12, it talks about a spiritual awakening. And no matter what has happened in my life, I've been able to get through it with those things. I came to you guys. I was a blackout drinker. I drank to get drunk. I don't know what you guys talk about when you say I tried to go out and have a couple drinks. That was never, ever. I mean, what's the point, right? Too many calories, too much money. So I drank to get drunk, and I was a puker, and I wish there was a more ladylike way to say that, but there's not. And I would get so drunk that I would puke, and then I would go back and drink more. And that's just the way my life was very early on. I came to you guys a drunk driver. I came to you guys a drunk husband stealer. I came to you a depressed drunk. I came to you a drunk liar. I came to you a drunk bully, because I was a bully. You know why? Because I thought I knew everything. Oh, and I walked in that door with hostile arrogance, and I didn't want you to know that I didn't know anything. And I certainly didn't want you to know that I wasn't okay. Because I think that's really what it is for us, that core, that I'm not okay. And I run around life trying to seek approval from everybody else. I came to you a suicidal drunk. I attempted suicide several times. I was in a psych ward. I was locked down. My mom called me a fat pig and a piece of shit every day of my life. That's reporting, not resenting. I believed her. My inventory was not pretty. The sex inventory was basically just looking for love in all the wrong places, because I needed approval, because I didn't feel okay. Back to the reading, when it talked about, alcoholics want to know who they are, and it talked about destiny and things like that. The things that, I do what I call a holy flip. I didn't know what to pick. And I know that self doesn't really take me anywhere. And I do what I call a holy flip. And I said, all right, God, let's have it. Young needs this number. Let's do it. And I opened up to page 323 and felt deep satisfaction about the reading because I came here blindly searching for God. I always knew there was something more. Also, guys, can somebody give me a 5-minute warning, Andy? I don't ever, people always, people have asked over the years, are you nervous when you speak? No, here's why. I pray a prayer and all I say is, God, empty me of me and fill me with thee. Because I know enough today and I'm free enough today and I'm clear enough today to know that my God does speak through me and that your God does speak through you. So the thing for me is I always wanted to know what my purpose was. I wanted to die because I had no purpose, because I wasn't worth anything, because I didn't have a reason to be here. And there's a couple things in the book. It tells us our purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people around us. We're to get sober and to carry this message to other alcoholics to help them achieve sobriety. I go through the steps annually because what happens is I go through steps 1 through 12 and I get to 12 and I have a spiritual awakening. And then what happens is I fall asleep again. And I want to wake back up because there's nothing in this world that compares to the freedom that these steps give me. So I came here and really what I was doing was blindly searching for God, groping. I was groping toward God. And I remember I was talking to it. I was between 1 and 2 years sober. And I remember I was, complaining about somebody at work and I called my sponsor at the time. And I just went on and on and on about this girl at work. And, he said what he had to say, which, of course made me angry. And I said to him, but I'm just so exhausted. And he said, well, of course you're exhausted. Self wears you out. Oh, I'm so glad he told me that in my first or second year. Because man, when I'm tired, guys, when I'm exhausted, it's because I'm in self. Because the book promises me that I do not tire so easily because I'm not burning energy foolishly as I did when I tried to arrange life to suit myself. Because it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And you know what I found out about those suicide and that I wanted to die? You know what I found out about that later? I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. But I didn't know how to live. I wanted to be better, do better, have better, live better. But I didn't know how. I didn't even know what a spiritual principle was until I came to you. And even when you talked about it, I just, kept brushing you guys off and calling you crazy. My mother called you a cult, reporting, not resenting. Oh, gosh. I was talking to a sponsee yesterday, I believe, and she is like on fire. She has not had a drink for a while, but she has been living in sobriety as I have before. And she's feeling a lot of relief since we've been working together because she decided to surrender and she's following directions and all of the things. And she just was so excited and she kept saying things and kind of, congratulating me or whatever, not congratulating, but you know what I mean? Thankful and grateful to me. And she said, I just can't express. And I said, because I would share like God stories and things like that. And I just couldn't, express. And then finally what came to me was I said to her, now hold on, don't everybody hang up on me. What I said to her is, you're excited because you want what I have. Now, I'm going to talk to you about that. That's not my ego because I have freedom, but that has nothing to do with me. And I have peace, but that has nothing to do with me. And I want to say something about this thing we call self-esteem and this thing we call self-worth. Hello, did anybody hear the first parts of those? Self-esteem, self-worth. See, self is not good enough for me anymore. Today I have God esteem. Today I have God worth. I don't have confidence today. I have Godfidence today. You know why? Because I don't listen to anybody anymore except my sponsor and a few of my friends. Because not everyone's going to like me, guys. God has thrown out this buffet of beautiful people. And in this program, I was talking to my sponsor yesterday, and I could be wrong, God knows, but I said Alcoholics Anonymous is the only organization that's going to make it through this election in America. And we can, because we're people who normally wouldn't mix, and I love you all, and that is something we call the fellowship of the Spirit. I just went to a conference last weekend in Delray Beach. There's a lot of people there. It was a women's conference. Women like to talk. I like silence. So my sponsor says to me, are you struggling with like intimacy or closeness with everybody? My sponsor was there too. And I said, oh goodness, no. I said, I love everyone with all my heart because they all love her. My sponsor has 49 years sober, and she still does workshops, and she still goes to meetings, and she still sponsors people, and she still does everything. She just wrote a book, actually. I'm going to plug it, but it's called Harmony to Healing, or Healing to Harmony. Sorry, I'm so sorry. It's here somewhere. But it's by Rena Cage. It's Traditions in Relationships. Now the proceeds, 100% of the proceeds, if you're listening on recording, go to the Wilson house, go to Dr. Bob's house, and go to Stepping Stone. So she's not making any money off this. That's why I plugged it. But it's a beautiful book that teaches me about relationships. So my answer to her was not about the closeness or the intimacy. It's that everybody loves her, and so many people wanted to spend time with her, and I get to spend time with her all the time. So you see, I'm trying to be selfless. And she said, well, it's okay. I want you around too. I said, I understand, but there's like 400 women here, and I'm rooming with 2 of them, and one is waking me up with her kisses, and the other one's, hugging me goodnight. And I just want to go talk to God for a little while and listen to my favorite sound, which is silence. And so it was okay. And the thing is, guys, these women that I stayed with in my room, I've known them for years on Zoom. And it was no different meeting them in person except the hug. No different whatsoever, because we do have the fellowship of the Spirit. And because my heart has been cracked open by a God who is so big that I'm able to love as much as I'm able to love today. I never knew I had this love inside of me until I met you guys. And at first I couldn't act like that. I couldn't act like I loved anybody. I just had to come here. I say I was a sarcastic know-it-all. My sponsor likes to say hostile arrogance. She's so mean. She's so mean. Most of the time I call her and I'll say, this ABC happened and whatever. And you know what she says to me? Well, Sherri, that's none of your business. Why do you have to be so mean, lady? I just don't understand. um, yeah, so I'm sorry. I just read a chat message that was not for me. I just thought it was my time already. So, anyway, talking about that want what you have kind of thing, it truly is because of Godfidence and God esteem and God worth. I have a friend of mine, and he started dating someone, and she's a doctor, and he's a manager at Lowe's. And the girl's a doctor, and he's kind of intimidated, and she's not just like an MD, she is a PhD, and she's an MA, and she's all these things. She has, I think, 4 degrees and working on another one. And he's like, it's intimidating sometimes. And then a few weeks later, he was telling me she's interested. She knows I'm in the program. She knows I'm doing the deal. And he said, she's interested like in the spiritual part of things. And I said, oh, wow. And he said, but, I still am intimidated and by all her degrees and all of this. And I said, what's so interesting to me is that you're not interested in how she got your degrees, but she's interested in how you got your spirituality. And she may have PhD and MD and FAAD and MA behind her name, but what you have behind your name is GOD. And for me, and I'm not knocking education. Listen, I know it costs a lot of money and all that, and it's all great, but I have GOD behind my name today. And that's the best degree that I could have ever obtained. You see, because I always believed in God, but I didn't rely on God. And there's a difference. Belief is not reliance. Belief is not reliance. I can believe in God all day long, but if I don't rely on God, it's not really helpful. I usually run through the steps. I kind of did a step 1 with you guys. Step 2, I came to you with a very shaming, punishing, condemning. A lot of you know Catholic God. I would smart mouth my mom, and I would walk away and I would stub my toe, and she would say, see, God's punishing you. Reporting, not resenting. And I believed her, and I believed that about God. And I'll tell you what, guys, I thought I did so much damage and so many things that I was going to hell anyway, and I thought there was no purpose in trying. I don't know. You guys talked me out of that. And the God I came here with is the God that I sarcastically, arrogantly, hostilely told everyone about. And I picked sponsors, and I said, I don't need the first 3 steps. I believe in God. Let's go on to 4. I just wanted to, verbally vomit my stuff all over someone. That's what I thought was the issue. I just need to get rid of it. Step 2 for me today is about, what do I believe about God? It's not coming to believe, it's what do I believe? I had somebody ask me yesterday, I'd never spoken to her before. And she asked me, she said, I don't understand what it said when it says a God of your own understanding. She's like, I don't understand God. I never will. And I said, well, what do you believe about God? And she said, I believe God is loving and vast. And I said, then that's your understanding of God. You understand that God is loving and vast. She said, oh, that's all. It's about what I understand about God. My God is omnipotent, unfathomable. I didn't even know what that word meant. I heard it in a movie, and I looked it up, and it said not capable of being measured, unfathomable. God is unfathomable. I can't, you can't, the millions of people in Alcoholics Anonymous can't measure God. Science cannot measure God, the power, the authority, the almightiness. Nobody. I call it God, but I've been lucky enough to hear all you beautiful people share about the God of your understanding. And one of my favorites is someone calls their higher power Gus, G-U-S, Great Universal Spirit. Ah, Great Universal Spirit. A lot of times my prayer is, here I am. Use me. Because I used to ask for specific things, but I'll tell you guys this, I don't know what I need. So today I just ask, give me what I need. Thank you. And I move on. I'm probably going to say some things that are a little bit different than maybe whatever you say. You do what works for you. I'm telling you my details today. Step 3 for me, if I only made a decision to eat, I would die. I would die of starvation because I only made a decision. I actually have to keep going. I have to keep going. I give my will and my life to God. I'm going to work with someone today and around her mom. We're just going to do her mom. We're going to go through steps 1 through 12, and we're going to work on her stuff about her mom because she's not free and she's been here a few years. But see, that's the thing, is like I turn my will, my life, and over to the care of God. I turn my will, my life, my mother over to the care of God. Because again, belief is not reliance. Step 4 for me, guys, I'm going to say it. I've been calling it a sack of potatoes. It's about the sack of potatoes for me. Did you ever leave a sack of potatoes in your pantry and they start to grow potatoes and they start to get moldy and gross, and then there's this liquid that forms and you have to clean it up and you have to like throw out, and especially if you get like a 10-pound bag, it's pretty heavy, right? So on those potatoes are things like fear, and there's a potato that says resentment, and there's a potato that says I'm a victim, and there's a potato that says what you did to me, and I have to get rid of all that stuff. And that's another reason I go through the steps minimum annually. When COVID was here, woo, it blew up. I feel like I worked the steps more because I worked front lines. I was a medical assistant and phlebotomist, and people were dropping dead and nobody knew what it was. And I was so scared, and I had to beg people to put on a mask because they didn't want to for a political reason. And all I wanted to do was say, that's an outside issue. Put your mask on, you know? Or they would cough, or they would go into the bathroom and not wash their hands. It was really hard. Oh, but these steps saved my life. They saved me from blowing up at someone, or from blowing, just walking off the job. See, I'm a grenade and God is the pin. And if I remove God, I explode. And that means I'm either going to pop off on you, or my thoughts explode. I haven't had a drink for 22 years. So I don't have a drinking problem today, but I do have a thinking problem, and I can get into obsessive thinking in an instant. I'm not powerless over people, places, and things. Guys, I wasn't powerless over COVID. What I am powerless over is my alcoholism. Because if I'm powerless over you, that means I'm in your business. Oh, and remember that mean sponsor I have? Well, Sherri, that's none of your business. It's not. So I just got to keep looking at me, my alcoholism. ISM, my favorite is internal spiritual malady. I have an internal spiritual malady. The steps treat that. Step 5, the most beautiful thing for me I want to talk about fear. Fear, FEAR, my favorite, forgetting everything's all right. That's what happens when I go into fear. I forget that it's all right. I forget everything's all right. And if you remember what I said earlier on, what happens for me is I think I'm not okay. It's because I forget that I'm okay. And then there's those people that are really mean, and they say things like, fear is a low form of atheism. So then what does it go back to? Belief is not reliance. Just because I believe in God doesn't mean I'm relying on God. And that's what happens. Why I go into fear is because I'm not relying on God. Step 5 for me, I remember my 5th step. I don't even know who it was, but I remember it. What I remember about that 5th step is not one thing that I said. I don't remember the sponsor who heard it at the time. What I remember is that their face didn't move. You know what that means for me? That I wasn't judged. I came in here, people pleaser extraordinaire. And for someone to hear all that stuff about me, all those bad things that I thought I was going to hell for someone's face to not move, man, that was a really beautiful experience. And today I get to experience that over and over again. I'm actually back on the steps of my sponsor. I'm on step 4 right now. If you're new, I want to say something about step 4, and I want to say something about not step 9. It's usually where I lose people. It's usually where we lose people. That's been my experience. My experience has also been I've never met anybody who has worked all 12 steps and drank again. Unless whatever. It's just my experience. It's probably not all of AA, but that's my experience. Step 6 and 7 are big. You know why they're big? Because they're not mine. Step 6 and 7 are the shortest paragraphs in the big book. And you know why? Because they're God's job, not mine. The only thing I'm asked to do in step 6 and 7 is pray. See, because in step 6, I have my list of character defects. And I already know I'm all those things. I know now. I didn't know then. I used to get mad at you when you used to tell me I was selfish. Step 6 is God's job. It's not behavior management. I'll tell you why. Because I have moral and philosophical convictions galore, but I could not live up to them. Man, I really wanted to do better, be better, have better, live better. I didn't know how. And that's what you guys have gave me. And that's what this program has given me. You taught me how to live. You taught me how to be a better person. So that not only can I like myself, but I can feel good enough that I think God likes me too. Because you see, that's what happened for me, is I didn't think that I thought God was unfathomable, but I thought God was that for you, not for me. Not for me. And now today I experience a God of my understanding so big. You know, I used to breathe God in, Sherri out. Today I breathe God in, God out. Because today I feel like I have enough God in me to say I can actually truly breathe God out into this beautiful world that we live in, into this beautiful fellowship. But here's the thing, it's not what I do or say in this fellowship, it's what I do or say outside this fellowship. It's more important what happens between the Lord's Prayer and the Serenity Prayer, not what happens between the Serenity Prayer and the Lord's Prayer. Because when I'm with you, I'm better. Ralph White always said that, and I used to get upset because I didn't know what he was talking about, but now I know what he's talking about. I'm better when I'm with you because just your presence reminds me of spiritual principles, reminds me of a better way of life, reminds me of a bigger God, reminds me of how to live, because I still forget. So when I walk out there and I pop off on somebody, or I, say something I shouldn't say, I give it to God, because it's up to God to remove that defective character. I'm going to just briefly share on my opinion about defective character and shortcomings. Now I'm going to tell you, Bill Wilson said, I just didn't want to use the same word back to back in 2 steps. Okay, that's great. But I looked them up. A defective character is things like selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, afraid, victim, stubborn, controlling. Those are defects of character. For me, a shortcoming is where I fall short. So if I was rude, where did I fall short? I fell short of being kind. And if I screamed at you or sent you a nasty email, what I fell short of is restraint of pen and tongue. And the reason I look for those things that I fall short of is because they're spiritual principles. And although my defects of character are glaring in step 6, step 6 and 7 allow me to not focus on those anymore. They allow me to focus on the spiritual principle. I have to find the defect of character. I have to give that to God and then keep walking. And what I need to walk toward is the spiritual principle, because there's where I can take action. I can practice the spiritual principle. I can practice the principle. So if I'm rude or I'm mean or I'm nasty or I shot off an email, I can say, I didn't do so good there. God, I apologize. I have to do what I need to do, is clean up my mess and, make amends and all of the things, apologize, whatever. But then I can focus on the defect of character. And even when I own it, besides saying I was wrong, I can say things like I wasn't kind, because that's what I want to lean toward, is what I'm supposed to be doing, what I'm falling short of, rather than the self-centered, self-seeking, and afraid. Because when I came to you and I hated myself and I was loathing myself and I just couldn't even stand to be in my own skin, I realized one day that I had to stop looking at myself in a way that God would never look at me. Because it's dishonesty, right? We have a character defect called dishonesty. I was lying to myself. All the bad things that I thought about myself, all the self-hatred, all the self-loathing, they're lies. That's not the voice of God. And I have 2 choices here. I have the voice of God or the voice of my ego. I also heard someone, it was a meeting, I don't remember where or what, but it was like they prayed for the group, like in a sentence or two. So the woman who was doing the prayer that day, she started out, kinder power. Oh, wow. You see? So if you don't believe in God or you struggle with a higher power, maybe a kinder power would work. Because I'll tell you this, I'm not very kind in my alcoholism. I'm not very kind in my thoughts about myself or about you. I got on my knees one night again. I was between a year or two sober. I got on my knees and I fired the God I came here with. The reason I fired the God I came here with was because it was too small. Someone had recommended to me, there's a book called, well, it's not conference approved, but I'm just going to say it because we've said it before. Your God is too small. And I never, ever, it never occurred to me that I could have a bigger God. It never occurred to me that there was a bigger God. It never occurred to me that there was a God for me. But then somebody said, your God is too small. Okay. So I got on my knees one night and I'm like, hey, sorry about this, but you're too small. And you're fired. And I opened my arms wide and I prayed to a universal God. And I said, they're telling me that there's more than this out there. They're telling me that I have a perception of you that's available for a new idea. And so I let go of my old idea about God and I was open to a new idea. Step 8, God, guys. Well, God, you are God. Step 8, guys. One of the things that I realized, I heard this awful person on a speaker meeting say, step 8 for me, the people that were on my list, was because the harm I caused them was peace of mind. Oh boy, you guys just keep making it worse. Another new thing to look at. Man, oh man, was I a tornado roaring through the lives of others, but oh, my New York Italian mouth. You know, oh, it was everything. If I wanted to prove a point, if I wanted to prove to you I was right, because see, that's how I grew up in the loud Italian New York family. Everybody was right. And so it automatically made everyone else wrong because we were never on the same team. We didn't have traditions. We didn't have steps. We had screaming and yelling. And you know what? This is reporting, not resenting. What I realize now is everybody wanted to be heard. And everybody wanted to be validated. And the way that I came to you guys was the same. I didn't know how to live. I had no idea how to have relationships. And you guys taught me how to do that. Do I do it perfectly? No, I don't ever plan on it. That's the cool thing. Like that perfection character defect, it's not here anymore. It's not here anymore because I know I'll never achieve it, and that's okay. When I can't even think of the name, somebody will help me or tell me, the Oxford group, they came in and they started to practice Alcoholics Anonymous a little bit based on the 4 truths. Perfect love, absolute, what is it? Anyway, everything was perfect. Purity, honesty, love, and I can never remember the other one. But the reason that Bill Wilson decided to back off from them is because he said an alcoholic can't do anything perfect. But I don't know anybody who could do anything perfect. And so, see, that's the thing. I got to stop trying. The reason I'm trying is because I want you to think I'm perfect. But guess what? Self wears me out. So no matter what I'm doing, if I'm in self, I'm going to be really tired. The thing I forget is surrender is an action. We want to do action. We want to get busy. Surrender is an action. Waiting is an action. When I don't have an answer and I don't have a decision that has a deadline, I say, let me pray about it. I think I said that to Young maybe when he asked about which As Bill Sees It number did I want to read. And I said, I'm praying about it, or it's out for prayerful deliberation, and it's going to be a holy flip, because I really try not to make any decisions for myself. I just go along and see what happens. I can't believe I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to speed it up to the New York level. I saw it, Andy. I see that. I can't believe it. Okay, I just want to tell you a quick thing. Some of you guys know Ed O'Neill. He was a character, Al Bundy, on Married with Children, and then he was on Modern Family. I never really watched either show, but I saw him on an interview, and he was asked, both shows ran for like 10 or 11 seasons or whatever. So this guy's like 20, 21 years of success, major success. And he was asked, did you ever think these shows would be so successful? And he said, I'll be honest, I've never made a plan in my life. He said, I just go along and see what happens. Whoa, hello, third step. So that's what I do. I just go along and see what happens. I remember one day I had a list of 6 things to do, and I put them all in perfect order driving. Like, I'm going to loop this around, I'm going to take a left there, and then I'm going to keep going, and then I'm going to drive right back home. And this is how it's going to go. And 2 things didn't happen. And when the first thing didn't happen, I said, okay, God, I'm just going to go along and see what happens. And normally I would have like kicked the tires or whatever, in anger. But things don't always have to go my way, because, I know that God's way is better than my way. I have a friend of mine. She's a wonderful, beautiful speaker. If you haven't heard her or talked to her, Young, please do. I'm sure you guys know her, though. Lovey R. She's like my bestie. By my words, she doesn't really call me her bestie, but I call her mine, and I love her. And I don't think she'll mind me telling the story, but she doesn't. She's like, I don't really like to speak. I like to do one-on-one. I said, oh, what a beautiful and perfect example of self-will versus God's will. You want to do one-on-one, and God wants you international. See, that's the opportunities we have here, guys. COVID was a mess. It was a pandemic. It wasn't just here or there. It wasn't over there. It wasn't a few people here. It wasn't that. It was a pandemic. And although we had been using Zoom, so much so that it's in our book, it says modem to modem. Okay. But Zoom blew up. Do you know there's so many people celebrating 4 years sober because they got sober during COVID? And guess what else? Anybody ever notice that Zoom didn't break? Instagram went down. Facebook has been down. Twitter has been down. TikTok has been down. Did you notice that Zoom never went down once? Because it's a spiritual solution right here. And it's for the good of all. And so you see, something that was so ugly and fearful, God made into something beautiful, and it didn't break. And that's what I've learned about life, is that no matter what happens, I listened to a speaker yesterday, man, and boy, she had lost a lot. And she lost a child, and bam, she was still here, and she, cried through it. And it wasn't just sadness, it was spirituality. It was like this expression of God that I could not have gone through that if it weren't for Alcoholics Anonymous and you guys. And I really feel that. There's so many things in my life that I feel. Step 9, I want to say this. I know I got 2 minutes. All right, here we go. 1 minute and 35 seconds. Step 9 is not remorseful mumbling. The book talks a lot about that. I rarely have anyone I sponsor, nor do I really ever make an amends by speaking. I know that might be different. However, most of the time it's a remorseful mumbling. You know how many times those people heard me say, I'm sorry I was wrong. 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 So we do fun little adventurous things for the people we owe amends. We do anonymous things for the people we owe amends to. We drive to another state and send a gift card from there to someone we owe an amends to but can't directly talk to. Step 10 for me, guys. Continue, 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 continue. Sponsee asked me, don't you wish you ever weren't an alcoholic? No, I continue. Yesterday, I went to 2 meetings, talked to a couple sponsees, talked to my sponsor, talked to 2 newcomers, and 1 other sobriety sister. I don't tell you that because woohoo, braggadocious me. I tell you that because this is my life. I tell you that because I'm 22 years sober and I still want what you have. And I'm still willing to go to any length to get it. Because and again, not braggadocious. I know some of you guys don't know me. I sponsor people who are many years more sobriety, many more years of sobriety than I have. That's not bragging. That's because they stopped doing what they did that made them feel good. And they want to get back into the spiritual and emotionally sober part of things, because we can sit around in sobriety without a drink. Step 11 for me, guys, is about conscious contact. I found myself working 8 hours a day and not really even thinking about God. So now I set the reminders on my phone and it goes off and it just says God. And then when I see it, I stop, I take a breath and I breathe God in, God out, and I say thank you. A lot of my prayers are just thank you. And when it goes and it says God, and I see that on the screen, I do what I do, and then I set it again for another hour or 2 later, depending on how self is that day, depending on where the scale self is that day. Sometimes it's on the half an hour. And then step 12, guys, it says we try to carry this message. I know sometimes people have felt like a failure if they were unable to help someone, but what I know about failure for me is that I am not so arrogant anymore to believe God can't work through any failure. And the practicing of these principles in all my affairs, it's about out there. It's not about in here. It's about the man who's in the grocery store and can't pick up a case of water because he's elderly and it's on the very high shelf, and then walking him out to his car to put it in there. That's not because of braggadocious. That's because you taught me how to live. That's because you taught me how to focus on the spiritual principle that I need to practice rather than the defect of character that I don't like very much. This cleaning out, this inventory, this getting rid of the sack of potatoes, getting rid of the fear, it's about making room for God. That's all I'm doing, is making room for God in my heart, in my mind, in my body, in my soul, and in my life. Making more room for God. And the only way that I've ever been able to really do that is through these 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Made a mess, cleaned it up. Because that's what it allows for me. Thank you guys so much for having me and listening today.